Science Building. Welcome to Ohio State and welcome to Food Science and Technology. It's great that you could come here today. Before we start talking about food science and food safety, we have a welcome here from Associate Dean, Dr. Linda Hart.
Well, welcome everybody. I won't take much of your time because I know that you're going to learn a lot and have a lot of fun, and that's pretty exciting. I know I'd like to be in your shoes because you have an exciting afternoon planned. On behalf of the College of Food, Agricultural, and Environmental Sciences, I'd like to welcome you and the mentors and say congratulations, because that's quite an accomplishment for you to have been selected to be here. Food safety is one of the world's most important issues that we're facing. Food science is one of our fastest growing programs in the college. So as you think about college and you think about job opportunities and making a difference, how many people want to make a difference? Everybody wants to make a difference. Yeah.
Everybody raised their
So this is one of the best places to do that in the area of food science, food safety, food security. There's lots of jobs and lots of opportunities to make a difference and solve world problems. So congratulations to all of you and welcome, and enjoy the afternoon.
Thanks very much, Linda. Can I get two of the captains to come up here? Anyone? Who else would like to volunteer? Since you're closest to me, you get right. So we're here today to talk about what food science is and some of the important things associated with food safety. What do you guys think a food scientist is? What do you think a food scientist is?
Someone who can find better ways to harvest food and keep food nice.
Excellent. Go ahead and write harvest food on the board there. What about you? What do you think a food scientist does?
A food scientist studies food and finds out ways to make it stay fresh longer.
Excellent. Keeps food fresh longer. What else does a food scientist do? Audience participation time. What does a food scientist do? What's that? Studies food. What else? What would a job be that a food scientist does? What would a job be? A job title?
Protect food harvest or food poisoning.
Okay.
Like ways to food poisoning.
So keep food safe. What else? Make sure the food has been pasteurized. Okay, what do we put? Food processing up there. What else? How about some of the coaches? What do you think a food scientist is? Come on, pick on.
I have a friend who is a food scientist, and she is a taster.
A taster.
Yes, she tastes.
Professional taster. It's a good job.
My son is an undergraduate with the food science lab, and they developed how to grant and develop these cereal bars that you eat, like the Cheerios cereal bars.
So let's
New
put
food products.
new food products up there. Some of the other coaches in the back row, you can't hide. What do you think a food scientist does?
You're talking to him, right?
No, I'm talking to you.
I'm just a parent. Did we already say develop new food products?
We did.
Okay. Advances the way food is manufactured with robots.
Okay. Optimized food process.
There you go.
How about the two of you? What do you think a food scientist does?
I think developing new seeds.
And developing new seeds for plants. What else?
Thinking about making models of the food supply, the world's food supply.
Okay. Modeling the food supply. Okay. Well, the answer is you guys are all right. That's what food scientists do. Food scientists do a lot of things, from production agriculture on the farm, through manufacturing operations, through distribution, to the production and service of the final food product in retail food establishments, or restaurants, or to consumers' homes. But the nice thing about food scientists is that they can work in universities like myself. They can work for the government, and they can also work for the food industry. So I wanted to show you a short 3-minute video clip about what a food scientist is, to give you an appreciation of all the different kinds of things that food scientists do.
A food technologist, how could you describe that?
A food technologist can be any number of different things.
I am a senior research scientist.
Consumer safety officer. All of them are fun that I've encountered so far.
A food technologist is involved in basically every food item that you would see, eat, or think about eating.
A lot of misconceptions about food scientists are that we work in the lab. We're lab rats, we always wear the white coats.
I get paid to eat. How better can that be?
I'm a food nerd.
When you think of food, you think of something as simple and it appears magically on the supermarket shelf. As a matter of fact, there's quite a bit of magic, although it's scientifically based magic.
When I tell people I'm a food scientist, they really don't even know what that means.
We're keeping your food from plastic.
A lot of times it's solving a puzzle, whether it's in the area of product development or in the area of analysis.
I wanted to work for an organization where I could actually see the products of my labor on the grocery store shelf. In my day-to-day job at Campbell's, I'm responsible for actually creating soups that the consumers would like, that taste to the consumers.
Part of my job is coming up with new products, new ideas, innovative ideas. Everybody wants the next new thing. Jello pudding in a cup, that's mine.
Once you get into food science, it's something that grabs you.
Do they pay you to play with food?
It's constantly a learning experience and I enjoy it, and that's the beauty about the food industry is that you can take it anywhere you want to, from the farm all the way to the grocery store. So the coolest part is you get to eat your science experiments.
There's many options out there for food scientists. You do not end up being in a laboratory by yourself. I am an independent consultant. I go mainly to developing countries and I help their industry become more competitive. You get to meet all kinds of people. It's a great job.
Food scientists are innovators in the food world. We work with Hershey, we work with Nestle, we work with all the companies that make everything delicious.
You take a fresh soybean and I have to make that look and taste like a hot dog. Oh, how the heck do you do that? Well, that's what I'll do. The food industry is always a growing field.
No pun intended. My day is different every day. I like to be creative. It keeps me thinking.
What is my favorite food?
Pizza, ice cream.
Anything with cheese on it.
When you see that product on the shelf and then hear people talk about your product, that's awesome.
There's so many opportunities that you never get bored. We are the only science that has fun every day.
You'll be amazed at how cool the work actually is. And to top it off, you get paid to do it.
The best part about my job is that I can work on things scientifically but be creative doing it.
Pretty much that's about it. In a nutshell.
You know the best thing about being a food scientist? Everybody gets a job. And that's the nice thing about this department. Every student that leaves has a job right when they get out of college, when they go to graduate school. And quite often they have an opportunity to have 3 or 4 different jobs. So it's a really good profession to get into. Certainly if you have any other questions about food science as you get into high school and you start thinking about what to do when you grow up and go to college, certainly come by and visit me. I'm happy to talk to you more about what a food scientist really does. But you guys are here to learn about food safety, right? Because that's the theme of your Legos robotic competition, right? So I thought I would talk to you about what are some of the most important problems associated with food safety in the United States. And then I talk a little bit about how we control food safety problems. And then we're going to take you to different food processing plants within the building so that you can realize or so that you can see how we ensure that these food products are safe, that are manufactured here in the homes. I think one of the interesting things is if you ever pick up a newspaper, get on the internet, there always seems to be some kind of a story associated with food safety. Does anyone know of a problem that's occurred in the last 6 months or a year? foods? Anyone here know of a food safety problem? Yeah.
The cantaloupes that are causing people to get sick and that way.
Okay, so cantaloupes are a good example, right? Cantaloupes are often contaminated with bacteria called salmonella or called E. coli. Did you have your hand raised? No? You can just up like this. So it's something that's very commonly in the news. It's an important problem that we have. These are the things that can make us sick, right? Lots of different kinds of things. Bacteria and viruses, these are the two most common things that cause us to become sick. We're going to talk about these things in just a minute. Here's an example of a bacteria called salmonella. You can see these salmonella bacteria are long, pencil-like shaped microorganisms with little feet on them. We call these little feet flagella. It allows them to be able to swim around and get from place to place within the food system. Chemicals can also cause people to become sick. We can have chemicals that are added to the food supply, like pesticides, sanitizers. We could also have natural chemicals that are part of foods as well. And then physical hazards like rocks and stones can also be hazards that can cause us to become sick. If we take a look at those things that cause the most amount of people to become sick in this country, here's the long list of these things. We call them biological hazards. And any of you pronounce any of these things? How about, yeah, go ahead. Which one can you pronounce?
Salmonella.
Salmonella, right? So salmonella, where's that one? Right here? I'm glad that you said that one. It's the #1 bacterial problem in the world. Salmonella bacteria. You're next.
Hepatitis A.
Hepatitis A. Okay, so that's an example of a very common virus associated with foodborne. E. coli. Where's that one? Right here. Right? We read about that in the news all the time. One more in the back.
Norwalk virus.
Norwalk virus. Did you guys know that the #1 problem that we have in this country is due to Norwalk virus? 23 million cases a year of foodborne illness in the United States. Does anyone know how Norwalk virus was named? After a city in Ohio, Norwalk, Ohio, where there was a very large outbreak that occurred many, many years ago. So many of these things we've seen before. The names are tough to pronounce, but these are the things that a food scientist that works with food safety tries to control. We try to control them from not allowing them to be there. We try to control them from not allowing them to grow in food systems, and we also work at trying to destroy them, killing them in the food system so that they're not there. Yes?
Is salmonella also a kind of parasite?
Salmonella is not a parasite. Salmonella is a bacteria. Okay? So examples of parasites would be over here on the right. Things like Cryptosporidium, Toxoplasma. But salmonella is a bacteria. Here are some chemical hazards. Right? So we see all these different kinds of toxins. When you see the word toxin, that means it's a poison. We also see food allergens here. Who's allergic to foods? Okay, so typically about 1 in every 5 or 6 people at your age has some kind of a reaction or some kind of an allergy to food products. What are you allergic to?
Peanut butter and nuts.
Peanut butter and nuts. How about you?
I'm not sure, but I think just one mom is allergic. Yes,
Okay, so foodborne allergens, this is something that's really grown. It's a much more important problem today than it's ever been in the past. In fact, most schools now have separate areas for peanut-containing products versus non-peanut containing products. And many schools don't even allow peanut and peanut butter products to come into the schools because they're trying to protect people like you who can become sick if you come in contact with peanuts. And here's a list of these allergens. You can see there's 8 that are real common. Milk, egg, wheat, peanuts, soybeans, tree nuts, fish, and shellfish. And now there's a new law. And this new law states that if you have one of these 8 allergens in your food product, you must put it on the label so that we can warn people that might contain an allergen that can potentially cause them to become sick. We also worry about physical hazards. These are things like bone that might come from meat products. This is the #1 complaint in the food industry. It's bone in a food product that can cause someone to break their tooth as they're chewing. Metal, plastic, rocks, and stones. These are also things that can cause people not really to become sick, but it can be injurious to health, which means it can break a tooth or it can cause a choking hazard. So this is the list, kind of the top 9 or 10 things in the United States that cause us to become sick every year, and I just thought I'd show you. These are the things that cause you to become sick on the left. Then it's how many people get sick every year, how many deaths from a percentage standpoint, and what it costs us. So let's take a look. This thing that you had identified, Norwalk virus, is the #1 thing that causes foodborne illness in the United States. 23 million cases a year. You can see Salmonella and another bacteria called Campylobacter cause another 3 or 4 million cases each and every year. Yes?
If that's our #1, how come we don't hear about it much in the paper?
How do you hear about it? It seems to be less publicized than things like Salmonella and E. coli, and the reason that's the case is normally with Norwalk virus, you don't hear about it a lot because you think the death rate is really low. And if people aren't dying, they're just getting sick. They might think it's the 48-hour flu. They might not know or think that it was something that they ate, so quite often it goes misdiagnosed. We start hearing about things in the news. There's things like botulism, right? And listeria, which we've heard about in the news quite often. And things like Salmonella and E. coli, which have a much higher death rate. So we seem to see things in the news much more commonly when they cause people to become very sick or involved in large outbreaks and cause people to die. We also have pretty high costs, billions and billions of dollars. So this slide is just to be able to show you that we do have a real problem in our country. Food scientists are working on trying to reduce food safety risks and problems. We take a look at the foods that cause foodborne illness. Right now, fruit and vegetable products seem to be those foods that we're most concerned about. We're worried about fruit and vegetable products because now they come from all over the world. We don't know how they're handled. And fruit and vegetable products are quite often consumed or eaten without being heated. And that heating step is a really good way to be able to destroy these microorganisms. So, how do we prevent all these bad things from getting in foods? How do we prevent or lessen these millions and millions of people that are getting sick every year? 4 basic things that we can do. We can use temperature. We can use temperature in a lot of different ways. We can use cold temperatures like refrigeration and freezing so that microorganisms can't grow. They may be there, but they can't grow. Then we use other higher temperatures in ways of cooking or pasteurization or canning food products. We're going to learn a lot and be able to see a lot in the pilot plans associated with time and temperature control as a means of prevention. Good personal hygiene. Hand washing. All of you, before you go in the pilot plant today, are going to wash your hands and put on a funny shower cap. It's a hairnet. And we put that hairnet on, right there. We put that hairnet on to be able to protect from contamination from your face and your hair. And that food product. Then we work on something called cross-contamination control, and I'll show you what that is in just a minute, and cleaning and sanitizing. So those are the 4 basic principles associated with keeping food safe within the food industry. So let's first talk about temperature, because this is probably the most important. Microorganisms like Salmonella and Listeria and E. coli, they tend to survive and grow in a pretty narrow range. This is the range here. We call this the temperature danger zone. That means that they're able to grow and be able to produce these dangerous poisons as they grow. And that temperature range is 41 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit, 5 to 57 degrees Celsius. And the whole goal that we have is to keep them out of this range. So we try to keep foods less than 41. We try to keep foods greater than 135 degrees. So if they're there, the microorganisms won't be able to grow in a food system. So how do we do that? In the food industry, we will freeze products or hold them in cold storage in the refrigerator. And when we do that, we do it at less than 41 degrees. So if a health inspector went into a restaurant or went into your local supermarket and they have a thermometer, they'd be measuring in the refrigerator and they'd be checking to make sure that it's less than 41 degrees. If you want to check your refrigerator at home, less than 41 degrees is the key thing that you should look at to be able to keep those foods safe. We can also use hot temperatures to be able to destroy microorganisms. So all of these temperatures here from cooking all the way up to the canning process we use to kill microorganisms. But different temperatures result in a different level of safety for that product. If we're going to cook a product, like we're going to cook a hamburger or chicken at home, we're going to cook that product and then we're going to immediately serve it to someone for dinner, as an example, to eat it. If we're going to cook a product, the temperatures we typically look at are between 145 and 180 degrees Fahrenheit. But the key is if you cook it, you've got to serve it immediately. Now, if you go to a restaurant and you see a salad bar, you'll see that some foods are cold, some foods are hot. Those cold foods need to be less than 41. And if the foods are being held hot, they can be held hot as long as they're above 135 degrees. So if a health inspector was to go to a restaurant and measure the temperature in a salad bar of a soup, as an example, they'd be checking to make sure that it's greater than 135 degrees. If it is, it's safe. If it's not, it could potentially be unsafe. Another method we have that uses heat is called pasteurization, and somebody up front already mentioned pasteurization. And this is a temperature process that can be anywhere between 145 and 212 degrees. And when we pasteurize products, we do so to kill microorganisms, but we've got to refrigerate the product. So what would be an example of a pasteurized food that you consume every week?
Eggs.
Okay, some kinds of liquid eggs would be pasteurized.
Cheese.
Okay, cheese products would be made from pasteurized milk. In the back.
Apple juice?
Apple juice, okay, another product that can be pasteurized. But all of these pasteurized products must be kept cold, okay? Must be kept cold before they can be consumed in storage. The last process we have is called canning. In the canning process, we use much higher temperatures. And with the canning process, as you know, you can store a can in your kitchen cupboard. We say that that product is shelf stable. So as you can see, the higher the temperature, you can get to a condition where refrigeration is no longer needed. Hand washing. So an organization called the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, who talks to us about how to remain healthy. Their number one prevention in the food industry for preventing illness is washing your hands. It is by far the most important thing that we can do to be able to protect ourselves and to be able to protect people that we're producing food. So these are some of the things that can come on your hands. You guys mentioned a couple of these. Hepatitis A, somebody mentioned that earlier, that's a virus. And these two things here are kinds of bacteria that can commonly be found on human hands. So that's why the very first thing we're going to do today before we go in the pilot plant is wash our hands. We're also going to wear clothing. We have our model back here, Dr. Kent. He's got his hairnet on, and he's using that hairnet to be able to protect contamination from the hair into the food, and it also helps to protect him from doing this. Because when you do this, you're contaminating your hands. We call those good personal hygiene practices. So when would you want to wash your hands? A lot of different good reasons. After I cover a sneeze, after I go to the bathroom, after I play with my pet dog, after I scratch a place I shouldn't be scratching, after I suck my thumb. Think about all the places that your hand goes in the course of the day. And people say, well, why do you really have to wash your hands? And then I'll go over to them and I'll say, open your mouth and suck on my finger. No one wants to do that. Think about it. What you're trying to do is protect any points on your hands and fingers from being associated with foods. And these are some of the times that we would want to be sure that we wash our hands. Another good reason to wash your hands is after handling raw meat products, like raw chicken, before handling other food products that don't require cooking, like salad foods. Cross-contamination. Cross-contamination means that you contaminate one food with another food. We all know that raw chicken is dangerous, right? It contains salmonella, it might contain other kinds of microorganisms. So in cross-contamination control, we're trying to prevent what's on this chicken from getting on this cutting board and getting on this lettuce product. It's called cross-contamination. There's different things that we can do to protect against cross-contamination. One of the things that we can do is we can prepare that ready-to-eat food or the cooked food before the raw food. So we can make the salad first, then cut the chicken on that same cutting board. Well, another thing that we can do is we can clean and sanitize. So we can cut the chicken, clean and sanitize the cutting board, then cut the lettuce. We'll show you ways today where you can guess, you can estimate the level of contamination on the equipment. The other important thing that we do is we clean and sanitize, right? So we do that in the dishwasher at home, or maybe your mom and dad washes the dishes, and they clean them real well, and they might even have a way in which they try to sanitize those dishes. Cleaning, if you look at a surface, so let's say that this is a plate, well, that plate might have food on it, and all these microorganisms that might be on that surface. Right? So when we clean it, we try to remove most of this. So when we clean it, we remove almost all the food, a lot of these microorganisms that come with it, so that we only have a few microorganisms left. We can then sanitize that surface with a chemical, or we can sanitize that surface with heat to be able to make it safe or sanitary. So what are we going to learn about today? We're going to try to learn about the important principles that we talked about with time and temperature, right? Good personal hygiene, cross-contamination control, cleaning and sanitizing. How are we going to do that? We're going to go into 3 different plants. They're called pilot plants in this building. We're going to go to a dairy processing plant, a fruit and vegetable processing plant, and a plant that we call an emerging technologies plant. In the dairy processing plant, you're going to get to have ice cream. But while you're getting this ice cream in the dairy processing plant, you're going to learn important food safety stuff. What are you going to learn? You're going to learn the principles associated with time and temperature control. So we're going to show you how the milk is pasteurized, and then we're going to show you the importance of freezing that product to keep it safe. In the fruit and vegetable pilot plant, we're going to show you how food products are canned. And these food products in the fruit and vegetable processing plant are put into metal containers, then they're put into this really big cooking device. It's a pressure cooker that we call a retort. And this retort can cook these cans to very, very high temperatures. So when the cans come out after they're cooled, we can store them for many, many years without refrigeration. So in the fruit and vegetable pilot plant, we'll learn about the principles of time and temperature at very high temperatures for candy. In the emerging technologies pilot plant, Dr. Bala back here will teach you the important principles of new and novel processes that don't need to use heat. So you're going to learn about high pressure systems, where very high pressure is applied to a food product, and that high pressure kills microorganisms, but doesn't discolor the product, where heat might discolor the product. You're also going to learn, in the Emerging Technologies Pilot Plant, how we can validate cleaning and sanitizing. We're going to do that with a swab technique called the ATP swab technique. When you get down there, you'll see that they're going to swab a surface, and then they're going to put it into a device that's going to measure a number. The higher that number, the more unclean or the more dirty the surface is. So in the food industry, we can go around and swab different areas, and we can determine how clean or how unclean areas are based on the number that comes back. And I think they're going to be looking for volunteers about where to swab. So be thinking of the dirtiest places you can think of when you're within these pilot plant facilities. And the other important principle that we're trying to talk about all throughout this entire experience is good personal hygiene. You'll be washing your hands, you'll be wearing hairnets because they look cool. But it's also the right thing to do. I think I saw one or two questions. We've got time for maybe one or two quick questions. If you guys have questions.